Music vibrated in the crystal-lit hall, while sophisticated guests danced and toasted under the watchful eye of Camila, the evening's hostess. It was his birthday party, an event designed to impress, with journalists and influencers capturing every detail. However, behind the scenes, Luciana, a single mother and chef in charge of the buffet, struggled to stay calm while coordinating her team. In the improvised kitchen, she was adjusting the last dish when a waiter rushed in. "Mrs. Luciana, we need more trays of appetizers in the main room." "We're already finishing. Tell the guests to be a little patient," he replied as he arranged the dishes precisely. When he went out to check on the progress in the hall, he felt the eyes of the elite around him. Luciana knew she didn't belong in that world, but she was there to ensure the livelihood of her daughter, Sophia. Still, the weight of those looks always bothered her. Suddenly, Camila's voice echoed through the room, drawing everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to present a curiosity about those responsible for the party." Luciana stopped in the middle of the room, confused. The hostess looked at her with a cold smile. "This is Luciana, the talented chef who prepared each dish. However, it seems that she also decided to experiment a little more than she should." Camila pointed to a nearby table where Luciana had left a glass of wine and an appetizer that she couldn't resist after hours of work. The murmur grew among the guests. Luciana felt the heat rise to her face, but she remained firm. "Mrs. Camila, if you allow me, my team and I worked hard to make your night impeccable." Camila smiled falsely. "Working hard is no excuse to forget your place." The silence in the hall was deafening. Before Luciana could answer, a firm male voice cut through the air. "It seems to me that Mrs. Camila is confusing efficiency with submission." Everyone turned to see Santiago, a man of striking presence, walking toward the center of the room. His steady gaze met Luciana's, and he continued, "If the food is good and the party is a success, I see no reason for this kind of comment." Luciana felt a wave of gratitude and discomfort at the same time. She didn't need a savior, but Santiago's unexpected support changed the dynamics of the situation. Camila tried to counter, but Santiago ignored it, addressing Luciana. "The food is excellent. Thank you for making this evening memorable." Luciana murmured a thank you before retiring to the kitchen, feeling the even heavier looks on her. As he wiped his trembling hands, he heard footsteps behind him. "Are you okay?" Santiago asked, leaning against the door. Luciana looked up, still hesitant. "I'm not used to this type of treatment, nor should it be. Nobody deserves that." He smiled, a simple gesture, but one that carried sincerity. Luciana hesitated, but ended up smiling back, not realizing that this moment would be the beginning of something that would change their lives forever. Luciana returned home exhausted, with her feet throbbing and her mind heavy. The day had been long, and the confrontation with Camila still haunted her. As she opened the door of the small apartment, the smile of her daughter, Sophia, lit up the room. "Mom," the girl screamed, running to hug her. "Hi, my love. Have you ever had dinner?" Luciana asked, stroking her daughter's curly hair. "Mrs. Anna brought me soup. I saved some for you," Sophia said, referring to the elderly neighbor who often helped. Luciana felt a lump in her throat. Even with all the difficulties, he knew that Sophia was his reason to keep fighting. After putting her daughter to sleep, she sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of overdue bills. She was distracted when the phone vibrated.
"Luciana, it's Santiago." The voice on the other end was deep but gentle. Luciana frowned. "How did you get my number?" "I asked the party organizer. I hope you don't mind." She hesitated before answering. "What do you need?" "I want to make a proposal." Can we meet tomorrow to talk?
I want to make a proposal. Can we meet tomorrow to talk? Suspicious, Luciana almost refused, but something in his voice seemed sincere. Okay, tomorrow at 10, in the park's cafe. The next day, Luciana arrived punctually. The chosen location was modest, but cozy, surrounded by trees and the sound of birds. Santiago was already there, with a calm expression. "Thank you for coming," he said, rising to greet her. "I'm curious. What do you want from me?" Luciana asked, bluntly, as she sat down. He smiled slightly. "I want to help." She raised an eyebrow. "Why would someone like you help someone like me?" "Because I can," he replied simply, "and because I believe you deserve it. I saw how he handled the situation yesterday. His strength and dignity are admirable." Luciana was silent, trying to decipher it. "And what are you offering exactly?" "I have a community project that needs someone with your experience. It wouldn't be charity, Luciana. It is a job offer." She stared at him, surprised. "And what do you get out of it?" "Maybe nothing. Maybe just the satisfaction of knowing that I'm betting on someone who really deserves a chance." Luciana didn't know if she trusted him, but the opportunity was tempting. "I'll think about it." Santiago smiled unhurriedly. "That's all I ask." As she returned home, Luciana felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Luciana arrived at the building where she lived and looked at the paper where she had written down the details of Santiago's project. Nueva Esperanza Community Center. The idea seemed too good to be true, but Santiago's sincere gaze still hovered in his mind. The next day, as he dropped Sophia off at school, he felt a mixture of nervousness and determination. After a deep sigh, he went to the indicated address. Nueva Esperanza was a simple but welcoming space. In the main hall, children laughed while playing ball, and in another area, women sewed and exchanged stories. The environment was vibrant, full of life. Santiago was in the center of the room, talking to an elderly lady. But when he noticed Luciana's arrival, he walked towards her with a warm smile. "I'm glad you came," he said, extending his hand. "I haven't accepted anything yet." Luciana replied, maintaining her cautious posture. "Understood. But let me show you what we're doing before you decide." He guided her through the space, introducing the craft workshops, tutoring classes, and the small cafeteria that offered free meals. This place started as a simple idea: to give people a chance to start over. Santiago explained, "With your experience, you could help us expand even more, especially in the kitchen."
Luciana watched everything attentively. The people who attended the center were like her. Mothers struggling to provide for their children, children looking for a safe place. Something began to stir inside her. "It's a noble job, but I don't understand why you're so committed to it," Luciana said, staring at Santiago. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "My mother was like you. She raised me alone while working 3 jobs. This project is my way of giving back what she did for me and perhaps helping other people like her." Luciana did not expect such a personal answer. For the first time, he saw Santiago not just as a successful businessman, but as someone with scars of his own. "I'll try," he said finally, "but on one condition." "Which one?" Santiago asked, curious. "I want autonomy to manage the kitchen. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be my way." He laughed, nodding. Closed.
In the following days, Luciana immersed herself in work at Nueva Esperanza. Gradually, she began to feel part of it. But as he approached Santiago, he also realized that he was crossing worlds that didn't seem destined to meet. The first challenges came soon. Camila, who found out about Luciana's involvement with Santiago's project, wasted no time in spreading rumors. Between whispers and indirects, Luciana realized that she would have to fight not only to prove her worth at work, but also to protect herself from Camila's malice. One afternoon, while organizing a new proposal to expand the cafeteria, Santiago showed up in the small makeshift office. "Need help?" he asked, holding 2 coffees. "Only if you can deal with tight budgets and unpredictable suppliers," Luciana joked, accepting the coffee. "This is a piece of cake compared to what I've faced." He smiled and sat down next to her. The silence between the two was comfortable, but loaded with something more. Santiago looked at Luciana, hesitating before asking, "Why do you trust people so little?" She looked up, surprised by the direct question. "Because trusting has always had too high a cost for me." Santiago nodded, as if he understood more than she expected. "Maybe it's time for someone to prove that you can trust without fear." Luciana laughed lightly, but her eyes betrayed her caution. "We'll see, Santiago. See." The work continued, but Luciana felt that something else was beginning to form between them, something that made her both fear and desire what was to come. Luciana felt that working at Nueva Esperanza was a new chance, but that didn't mean the days were easy. Managing the cafeteria was challenging, especially with limited resources and tight deadlines. However, there was a sense of purpose that motivated her. While she found her space, Camila acted in the shadows. After the episode at the party, the influencer felt challenged by Luciana's presence, especially when she realized that Santiago was spending more and more time on the project. Camila saw Luciana as a threat and was determined to discredit her. On a Saturday morning, Luciana was organizing the delivery of food in the cafeteria when a notification on her cell phone caught her attention. Her face turned pale when she saw a video that Camila had published on her social networks. "Friends, I want to warn you about something I discovered," Camila said with a false tone of concern. The woman Santiago hired for the community project has a dubious past. The video continued with a distorted narrative about Luciana, insinuating that she would have used the project's money for her own benefit. Camila had manipulated old photos, editing images to look like incriminating evidence. Luciana felt the floor disappear. "This can't be happening," he murmured as his mind spun. The video quickly went viral, attracting both criticism and messages of support. Santiago, upon learning of what had happened, immediately went to the cafeteria. When he entered, he found Luciana sitting in the corner, clearly shaken. "Luciana," he said, kneeling beside her, "I've seen the video." She stared at him, her eyes teary. "People will believe her, Santiago. They always believe in people like her." "I don't believe it," he replied firmly, "and I'll do my best to clear your name." Luciana shook her head, frustrated. "Even if you succeed, the damage is already done. My neighbor's Sophia. She doesn't deserve to go through this." Santiago held her by the shoulders. "I won't let this destroy everything you've built. Trust me." While Santiago mobilized his legal team to confront Camila, Luciana had to deal with suspicious looks and whispers between some people in the project. Even those who knew her began to doubt. It was then that something unexpected happened. One of the mothers who attended the project, Anna, stood up during a community meeting and defended Luciana. "This woman gave us dignity through what she does here. If it weren't for her, many other voices united in support, and for the first time since the scandal began, Luciana felt she was not alone." Santiago was also by her side during all the turmoil. One night, while reviewing documents to refute the accusations, he looked deeply at Luciana and said, You're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Luciana felt his words cross her barriers. For the first time in years, she felt a thread of trust, not just in another person, but in herself. Still, the confrontation with Camila was far from over, and both knew that the next battle would be decisive. Luciana knew she couldn't back down, not only for her but for Sofia, and the impact that Nueva Esperanza was beginning to have on the community. She accepted the help of Santiago and his team, but also decided to face the problem directly. If Camila wants to turn this into a spectacle, I'll give her what she wants, Luciana said one morning, with a determination that surprised even Santiago hesitated, worried about the risks of exposure. Are you sure about that? Luciana nodded. It's the only way to get that shadow off me. The next day, she called an impromptu press conference in the cafeteria of the Nueva Esperanza itself. The hall was packed with journalists, members of the community, and even curious people attracted by the controversy. Luciana climbed onto a small makeshift platform with Santiago by her side as silent support. I know many of you have doubts about me, Luciana began, her voice firm despite her racing heart. That's why I want to tell you who I am, where I came from, and why I'm here. She talked about her life, her struggle to raise Sofia on her own, the grueling jobs, and the times she was judged solely by her appearance or condition. She told how she had started at Nueva Esperanza and how the project helped her as much as she helped others. I'm not perfect, she continued, looking directly at the cameras, but I never stole, I never lied, and I never used what wasn't mine. What Camila said about me is a lie, and today I am here to defend my truth. The room was silent for a moment before erupting in applause. Santiago looked at her with pride. She had not only defended herself, but also earned the trust of those who were there. But the final blow would come from Santiago. He hired an investigator to analyze the video that Camila had published. The analyses revealed clear manipulations in the images and digital traces that led directly to Camila's team. When Santiago presented the evidence to the public, Camila tried to deny it, but the repercussion was devastating. She lost followers and contracts, and her credibility was destroyed. Luciana, on the other hand, began to receive messages of support from all over the country. Her story has inspired many women facing similar challenges, and Nueva Esperanza has received donations from various parts to continue expanding. One evening, after the end of a busy day, Luciana and Santiago were in the makeshift office, reviewing plans for the future of the project. Thank you for believing in me, she said with a sincere smile. I've only seen what's always been in you, he replied, looking into her eyes. The silence between them was heavy, until Santiago, on an impulse, held Luciana's hand. Maybe, Luciana, Nueva Esperanza is not the only thing we are building here. She laughed softly, trying to hide the blush on her face. Let's take it slow, Santiago. He smiled, without letting go of her hand. Slowly, but together. The months that followed the scandal were transformative for Luciana and Santiago. Not only did Nueva Esperanza survive Camila's attack, but it also grew beyond what any of them could have imagined. The donations that arrived after the turnaround allowed for the creation of new programs, including a community school and an entrepreneurship workshop for women. Luciana became a figure of respect and admiration in the community. Her work on the project and her courage in the face of adversity made her an inspiration. Meanwhile, Santiago has found a new purpose, leaving part of his business activities to devote more time to the community center. One sunny afternoon, Santiago asked Luciana to accompany him to a plot of land near the center. "What are we doing here?" she asked as she looked around. Santiago smiled, reaching for a small envelope in his pocket. "I want to show you something." He handed her an architectural plan. Luciana opened it and saw the outline of a large building. "What's that?" she asked, confused. "It's the next step for Nueva Esperanza," Santiago replied. "A larger space with more classrooms, a complete industrial kitchen, and even a recreational area for children." Luciana stared at him, surprised and moved. "That's incredible, Santiago, but how are we going to do this?" He shrugged, a playful smile on his lips. "We've faced worse things, haven't we?" But before she could answer, Santiago pulled out another envelope, this time smaller. He knelt down, opening the small box inside him. "Luciana, you brought light not only to this place but to my life. I know you're independent, strong, and have a huge heart. I don't just want to build a future for this project. I want to build a future with you. Will you marry me?" Luciana was speechless. Tears began to stream down her face as she looked at him, the man who believed in her when no one else did. "Yes," she replied at last, her voice breaking. "Yes, I do." A few months later, Luciana and Santiago got married in a simple ceremony, but full of love and joy. The entire community participated, from the children who attended Nueva Esperanza to the women who worked alongside Luciana. Sophia, proud, was the maid of honor, and her smile reflected the happiness of seeing her mother finally finding the peace and happiness she deserved. The community project continued to grow, becoming a model of success replicated in other cities. Luciana took on a national leadership role, encouraging other women to find strength in their stories and to believe in themselves. And, alongside Santiago, she proved that, even in the face of the greatest adversity, love, hope, and unity could transform lives.